Hi, I'm Lizzie from Baecrochett, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create this cute crochet bralette, the Maleah bralette. I'm going to be guiding you through each step of the way from beginning to end. If you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to subscribe if you would like to see more tutorials from me. And feel free to check out my other tutorials on my channel where I show you how to create some of my other designs. Thank you so much for being here, and yeah, let's get into it.
If you would like the written pattern, it's linked in the description below on my website at baecrochet.com with exclusive discounts and on my Etsy shop. But if you'd like to continue on to the video tutorial, you can stick around. I used Lamia cottony yarn, premium hand knitting yarn. I used approximately 100 grams. One of these is 50 grams. So I used one of those and one of these. And I also had a bit left back. But depending on your size, you may need more or less. So I got these yarns from Hobium Yarns. You can check them out on Instagram. I actually really love these yarns for this project especially because this is 100% cotton, and if you don't know by now, I love cotton. Cotton is my favorite yarn to use, mostly because it's a natural fiber, and also I would suggest to use a cotton yarn or a silky yarn, meaning that if you were to use a, let's say, acrylic yarn, a lot of acrylic yarns, they're kind of stiff. So you see how we have this back piece here? It may not sit right on your back once you're finished with this project, meaning that it may be a bit stiff. But there are some acrylic yarns that are soft and silky and smooth and have a very nice drape. I would suggest to use a yarn with a very nice drape. You see how it falls naturally like that? Like it's not stiff. It has a nice little drape. So that's what you want to look for when choosing your yarn. And I would recommend this yarn for your project. If you'd like to check it out, you can go to Hobium Yarns on Instagram or check out their website. The pattern really suggests to use 2 different colors of yarns. But if you'd like to, you can use 1 color. But I'll be using 2 colors just because I like how it looks. So I'm going to be using these 2. So you will need yarn of your choice. Stitch markers, you may need a lot, like a handful. A darning needle, scissors, measuring tape, crochet hook. I'm using a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. Ultimately, you can use any size hook that you'd like, but I would suggest to use the recommended hook size for your yarn. And some beads of your choice. I'll be using these cowrie shells. These ones here are a bit different than these ones that I use here. As you can see, these ones, the back is open and the front also has a space here where you could place your yarn through. But this one I have here, it's a bit different. The back isn't open. You have to use this hole. I'm not too sure exactly how this is going to work out, but if you would like to use cowrie shells, I suggest to look for the ones with the open back like this. I'll have it tagged in the products on this video if you'd like to check it out. Okay, and that's it. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to be working on the cups first. I already started one to show you what it would look like. What I have here is the inside section of this cup, which is the same size as this here. This does not include the border around, so when we are making our cups, we have to keep in mind that there will be 2 rows of single crochet border around the cups. Okay, so firstly we're going to make 2 cups, and we're going to measure from your nipple to your underboob, and we're going to call this your measure A. To give you an idea of where your nipple would sit, would be somewhere around here in this corner area. So we're going to take our measuring tape and we're going to measure from the nipple to your underboob. So mine is about 6 centimeters. So I'm going to write that down, and that will be my measure A. My measure A, 6 centimeters. And now let's get our measure B. Take note of where the nipple is. You're going to measure from your nipple to the end of your boob at the bottom here. So we're just going to go straight down to here, and we're going to put our finger right there and measure. Take your measuring tape, the middle here to the end of your side boob. So that means wherever your boob ends, like underneath your arm here. If you would like more or less coverage, you can add more, but I'm gonna go with 10 centimeters, okay? And that will be your measure B. So this is what we have so far, our measure A and our measure B. So you're gonna write down these two measurements because we're gonna need that, okay? So take note of your measure A and your measure B, and we can move on from here. Okay, so I finished this one side, so I'm gonna show you exactly how to make this. So we're gonna firstly use our measure B, which is this one here, our measure B. So we're going to chain an amount that corresponds to your measure B measurement. So mine was 10 centimeters. So as you can see here, I made a chain starting from here all the way to here, and we're going to chain an amount that corresponds to your measurement. So my measurement was 10 centimeters, which is exactly from here to here. So you're going to take your yarn, make a chain that corresponds to your measure B measurement. Okay, so I made 18 chains here, so I'm going to be making 18 chains here, which corresponds to and is same as my 10 centimeters. So make sure that it matches your measure B. Now we're going to add one more chain. This will be your turning chain. So that's one there, one more chain. And now we're going to half double crochet into the second chain, not this one, but this one, because this first one is our turning chain, and we're going to make a half double crochet into that chain. So you can go into the chain like this and make a half double crochet like that, and go on and make half double crochets into each stitch. But I like to do this a bit differently just so it looks a little better once completed. So as you can see here, you have these chains here, but I'm going to turn my work on the underside like this. I'm going to be working into this back loop here instead of how I was working it before, just because it looks a little neater. So I'm going to be working my half double crochets into that loop. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to, because it's a little harder to get into that back loop. So yeah, you're going to be making half double crochets into each stitch all the way until the end, till here. So continue on all the way to the end here, and I'll meet you back. I just worked my last half double crochet into this last stitch right here. So I have my first row done, and now I'm going to chain one. This chain does not count as a stitch. This is just our turning chain. Now we're going to turn our work, and we're going to continue with half double crochets. So we're going to half double crochet into the first stitch, which is this one. And we're going to continue half double crocheting into each stitch all the way until we reach the end. So continue on all the way until we reach the end, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I reached back to the end here, and I have one more stitch at the end here. Let's work into that last stitch, which is right here. Right here I have to work into. So let's work our last half double crochet, and that's the end of this row. So we're going to keep repeating with our chain 1 and continue on to half double crochet into each stitch until the end. And we're going to be making this section here. We're going to be making this whole section here, this little rectangle, this first rectangle we're going to be making. So as you can see, I stopped the rectangle right here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. So I'm going to continue on to make 8 rows, but we're going to go back to our measurements. So remember, we had our measure A. Mine was 6 centimeters. So I'm going to continue on to make rows, 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 rows until I reach 6 centimeters, which is right up to here. So as you can see here, I have 6 centimeters up until the turning point here where I start to go around and back around and back around. So you're going to continue making your rows until you reach your measure A measurement. So we're going to measure the rows as we go along. So I reach 2 centimeters so far, and I need to reach up to 6 centimeters, which is my measure A measurement. Continue on with your rows until you reach your measure A measurement, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I just finished 9 rows here, and these 9 rows correspond to my measure A measurement, which is 6 centimeters. So make sure that matches up with your measurement. So I'm going to encourage you to write down everything so that you can do the exact same thing for your next cup and have them to be identical. So I wrote down here my measure A, which was 6 centimeters, which was equal to 9 rows. So my 6 centimeters right here, so that equals to 9 rows. And my measure B was 10 centimeters, which equals to 18 chains when I started at the beginning of the row. Okay, so you're going to write down these just to make sure that you have your stitch counts correct for your next cup. And now that we have this, we're going to move on to working around. So I just did this row here, and I'm going to continue on going all the way down to this section here. So on this 9th row right here, you can see that I started at the corner. This is the exact corner right here where I added 1, 2, 3 half double crochets to that corner, and then I started working down the edge here. So that's where we are now, down the edge here. We're going to work into the side of these half double crochets. Okay, so now that you reach here, we're going to make 3 half double crochets into this last stitch that we made. So I already made 1 into the last stitch, 1 half double crochet. So I have 2 more to make. So I'm gonna go into that same spot and make 2 more half double crochets. Okay, now stop for a second and place a stitch marker into the middle stitch of these 3. So there's 1, 2, 3. Place a stitch marker into that stitch, because I find it a little hard to determine what is the middle stitch with these half double crochets. So I suggest to place a stitch marker just to make sure. I highly recommend doing that, because on the next row, if you don't have it, it might be a little hard to determine which one of these corner stitches here is the middle stitch. Okay, so now we're going to work down the side here. So it's going to be a bit random, but try to make it as uniform as you can, okay? And if you'd like, you could count the amount of stitches that you made so that you can write it down and make the same amount of stitches for your next cup. just so that everything is equal on both cups. Okay, so now I'm going to work into the sides of these half double crochets. So there's no definitive way of doing this, but I'll show you what I'm doing. Now I'm going to work into this space here, just trying my best to make it look uniform and even as I can. And into the very last stitch at the corner here, I'm going to work right into here. Okay, so this is what I have so far. So I'm going to count how much stitches I have here. I'm not going to include these 3, so that's 1, 2, 3 at the corner. So I'm going to count from here, the next one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 half double crochet. Make sure to write that down so you have it for your next cup. If you don't come up with the same amount, you can go back and take out some stitches or add more stitches if it's not even. Okay, now we're going to chain 1 again. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch as usual. It is the turning chain. So we're going to continue on and work all the way up to this end. Chain 1, turn your work, half double crochet into each stitch all the way up to the stitch marker. Okay, half double crochet all the way up to your stitch marker, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I reached back up to my stitch marker. I just worked into the last stitch before my stitch marker, and this is where the stitch marker comes in handy, so you can see which one is the exact corner, because we're going to be working 3 stitches into this stitch. So take out your stitch marker, place 3 half double crochets into that space, just like the previous row. And now we're going to place our stitch marker back into the middle of those 3 stitches, which is this one, so we don't lose our middle spot for the next row. And now I'm going to continue on to half double crochet into each stitch all the way until we reach the end here, and I'll meet you back. I just made my last half double crochet, so I have 2 rows so far with our 3 half double crochets at the corners. This is the first 3 half double crochets on this corner, and then on the next row I have 3 half double crochets on this corner, and on the following row I made 2 half double crochets on that corner, 2 on this corner, 2 on this corner, and then I went on with no more increases. So we're gonna gradually stop increasing. You can create 3 half double crochets at each corner, but I'd suggest to stop when your nipple is covered. So let me show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so I have my cup here that I'm working on, and you're gonna place it up to your chest like this. And once you are partially covering your nipple, like I know there's the areola, so we don't have to fully cover that yet. So I'm going to be moving on with 2 half double crochet increases on the next row instead of 3. And I guess we can use the 2 half double crochet increases to cover your areola area. Okay, and then once that's covered with how much ever rows that you use, and then we can move on with no half double crochets until we reach our desired coverage. Okay, so I'm going to move on to this following row, chain 1,
turn your work half double crochet into each stitch until you reach your stitch marker. So continue half double crocheting all the way until you reach your stitch marker, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I reached back to my stitch marker. I just worked into the last stitch there. Now I'm going to take out the stitch marker and I'm going to place two half double crochets instead of 3 half double crochets. 2. Now I'm going to continue on to half double crochet into each stitch all the way to the end. Okay, so I just worked into the last stitch there. This is what we have so far, and now I'm going to continue on with my chain 1 and half double crochet into each stitch until we reach the corner. Take a look at your work and we can see which one of these stitches that we need 2 half double crochets into, which is this one right here. So there's 1, 2, and for me, I think that this one looks like it's more on the corner instead of this one. This one looks like it's more the top here. So I'm just going to choose this one right here just because it looks like it's more on the exact corner. So I'm going to place my stitch marker. So you can continue going on and making half double crochet rows with your 2 increases. This is really a trial and error to see how it forms to your breast. And when you stop increasing, as you can see here, there's like a little curve in this cup. I made a total of 3 more rows with 2 half double crochet increases. 1, 2, 3, yeah. And then I went on with 1, 2 rows with no increases. So that's what kind of makes this curve, which kind of forms to your body and keeps the girls in. No nip slips. I suggest to have at least maybe two rows with no increases at the end. But also we want to keep in mind that we're going to be making 2 more rows of single crochet around this once we're completed. So you can place this up to your chest to make sure that you have the coverage that you'd like, but I'd suggest to keep in mind that we're going to be making 2 more rows of single crochet, so that's going to add on more coverage. So if you'd like, you can remove a row if you think that the two extra single crochet rows would make too much coverage, if you think, you know. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're making these cups. So make sure it's like a bit smaller than what you would like once you're completed these cups. So continue on with your increases. Okay, so I just finished making my last row with 2 half double crochet increases. So I made a total of 3 rows with 2 half double crochet increases at the corners here, and you want to stop when you can place it up to your chest like this and your whole nipple is covered. So you want to make sure that your whole areola area is covered as well. And once that's covered, you can move on to making rows without any increases. Okay, now I'm going to make a couple more rows, 2 more to match my other cup, and yeah, I'll meet you back. Once you complete these 2 cups, make sure they are identical, same size, with the same amount of rows. And as I said before, we're going to be adding 2 more rows of single crochet, as you can see here. So my outer color will be this color. Okay, so what I have here is I laid out my cups. I want you to make sure that it's upside down and there's no front or back, so you can lay it out like this, exactly as shown here. And we're gonna start from this corner, go to this corner, then to this corner, then all the way down to here, back up here to this corner, and then back to the beginning. So that's where we're starting with the single crochet row. Okay, and I'm making a slip knot.
And now I'm just going to make a standing single crochet at the corner here, the first stitch at the corner.
Okay, so I'm going to place my hook into this first stitch at this corner, grab the yarn and pull through. Now you have 2 loops and you're going to grab the yarn again and pull it through the 2 loops, and that's your first standing single crochet. Now we're going to work a single crochet into the next stitch, and we're going to continue single crocheting into each stitch all along. And I'll show you what to do once we reach here, okay? Okay, so I reached to this section where there is the sides of the half double crochets that we have to work into, and we're going to work into these sides just like how we did before. Just try your best to make it as even as possible. Okay, so this is what mine looks like. I worked over those loose ends so that I would have less loose ends at the end of the project to weave in. And I'm just working into this last stitch at this corner, 1 single crochet, and now to join the next side, if you want, you can make the both sides equal. So you can count your stitches that you made at the sides of these half double crochets, and you can match up the same amount of stitches to the other side, just to make sure that everything is even. But remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm gonna grab my work and just continue with your next single crochet into the next corner on your next cup. Okay, so you can just double check and count the stitches on the both sides just to make sure that both sides are even. And if they're not even, you can unravel and try again to make sure they're even if you'd like. Now you can continue on with your single crochets into each stitch until you reach the next corner. Okay, so I just finished my second to last stitch, and now I'm going to work into the very last stitch at the corner, and I'm going to place 3 single crochets into that last stitch, all into that last stitch. Okay, so now we can work into the sides of these half double crochets just like we did before with the same single crochet, and we can try our best to make it as even as we can to the best of our abilities. Okay, so I'll leave you to do the rest all the way down to the next corner. And at the next corner, you're going to place 3 single crochets into that exact corner stitch, and then work single crochets all the way down to the middle of the cup. So we're working 3 single crochets into that corner just like how we did before. So I'll leave you to do the rest, and I'll meet you back once I reach here, okay?
Okay, so we reach back down to this corner. I made my 3 single crochets at this corner, then I worked all these single crochets down to the middle of the 2 cups. And now I'm just going to work a single crochet around this section while also covering those ends just like that. So that's 1 single crochet in the exact middle. I'm not going to work into this stitch here since this is already in these stitches. I'm going to work into this one. Now continue single crocheting into each stitch just like before. Continue single crocheting into each one of these stitches all the way to this corner. Make 3 single crochets into the corner stitch and then back down to the beginning, and I'll meet you back. Now I'm back to this corner and we're going to connect the beginning where we started, which was this way. So far we have 1 row around your cups. We're going to be making another row around the cups, but we're going to start from here, make 1 strap, add the bead, then come back down, work all along this edge, make another strap, work all the way down to here, make another strap, come back here, and we're going to be making little picots, and then we're going to work all the way down to here and then add in our bead at the middle and then back up to here, another strap, and then back to the beginning. Okay, so get your beads together. I'm going to make a strap, and for me, I like my straps to be around 100 chains, so I'm gonna make 100 chains for mine. If you want your strap to be longer, you can add more chains to yours, but we want to make sure that all the straps are equal, and you continue chaining until you reach 100. Okay, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I just made my 100 chains. So at the end of each strap, I'm going to take a bead and then pull up this loop and then kind of try to push it through the hole in the bead, just like this, and then place your hook back onto that loop and then grab the yarn, pull through, and then I'm gonna slip stitch into each one of these stitches. So you can slip stitch just like regularly, like this, into the stitch, into the front of those stitches, and slip stitch all the way down to the beginning. But I like to make my slip stitches a little different. As you can see, these are the front of these chains. I'm going to turn it around to the back. I'm going to work into this loop at the back instead of in the front. It's a little harder to get your hook through that stitch, but I just like how it looks in the end. This is just my preference. If you'd like to do it this way, you can, but you can do it the regular way as well. Okay, so you're going to continue doing this all the way down to the end. You can do either single crochets or double crochets to make your straps thicker, but I want mine to be thinner, so I use slip stitch. Okay, so go ahead and I'll meet you back here. I reach back around, and this is what your first strap should look like. Now I'm going to slip stitch into this last stitch here. There is this single crochet here, so I'm just going to work another single crochet into that stitch. Okay, and I'm just going to continue on. I'm not going to slip stitch into this stitch. I'm going to make a single crochet into this stitch, which is the first stitch that we made. I'm going to make a single crochet just like this, and I'm going to continue single crocheting into each stitch, and you're going to continue all the way until we reach here. I reached this middle section here, and we're just gonna keep single crocheting just like we usually would. So as you can see, there's a stitch right here. I'm gonna single crochet into that stitch, and then we can kind of move around this stitch here, and we're gonna work into that stitch underneath it, just like that, and continue single crocheting all the way until we reach the end, and I'll meet you back. Okay, I reach back to this end here, and now we're going to be making another strap just like this one. We're just going to continue to single crochet until we reach the middle stitch, and single crochet into the middle stitch of the 3. Now I'm going to continue just like before on this side, making 100 chains. Continue your 100 chains and add your bead just like we did before, with this bead and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I just did my second strap, which are the two bottom straps, because this is the bottom. And now I'm back to the beginning of this chain of 100. And now I'm going to slip stitch into this last chain. And now I'm going to make a single crochet into the same stitch where we made a single crochet before. So this is the middle stitch. So we're going to make another single crochet into that same stitch, just like that. And now we're going to continue into each stitch making single crochets. And we're going to single crochet into each stitch, and we're going to do it just like how we did the corner here. So we're working one single crochet into the exact middle stitch at this corner, and then making your 100 chains, and then adding your bead, and then slip stitching all the way back down, just like how we did here at this corner. And then I'll meet you back, okay? So we have 3 straps so far. I just have one more slip stitch at the end here to make, which is this one right here. And then I'm going to single crochet into the same stitch that we single crochet into at the beginning, right before we made these chains. And now I'm going to single crochet maybe around 3 times. And now we're going to make a picot edging around this section here. So to make this picot edging, I made 1, 2, 3 single crochets. And now I'm going to make my first picot. And to do so, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to slip stitch into that same single crochet stitch. We're not going into the stitch like how we usually would, like around here. We're going to go in from the first loop in front of you, and then through this loop at the bottom. So that's 2 loops there. And now we're going to slip stitch. Okay, so that's our first picot. Now we're going to single crochet into the next stitch. And we're going to make 3 single crochets. So that's 1. So after 3, to make another picot. Single crochet into the next 3 stitches. And we're going to continue making picots all the way to maybe around somewhere here. It really depends on your preference where you want to stop, but I'm going to stop somewhere around here. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to do the rest of the picots, and I'd say depending on how much coverage you want, we're going to connect 2 of these together, these 2 sides together. If you want more coverage, you can do it closer up to the top. If you want less, you can stop maybe around here. You can stop anywhere around here. So continue with your picots until you reach here, and then we're gonna add our bead, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I reached back down to this section here, and I stopped around here, and I just made my last 1, 2, 3 single crochets. So I'd say maybe to end off with your last 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have to be perfect. I have 7 stitches free here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 all here. So we're going to count 7 on this side as well. And we're going to take a stitch marker, and we want these to match up on both sides. So you can have 8 stitches, 9 stitches in between here and here. It doesn't really matter too much, but leave enough space for your bead to sit in between. Okay, let's bring up this loop and keep it open because we're going to use that just now. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm not counting this middle stitch here, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on the 8th stitch is where we're going to connect these two sections. So I'm placing my stitch marker into that stitch. So have your bead close by, and we're going to take this loop, we're going to place the loop through our bead. So we're going to go from the back of the bead, if you have these same cowrie shells, from the back to the front, not from the front to the back. No, we're going to go from the back to the front in the back and try to push it through, pull it all through, place your hook back on, pull closer, pull your yarn, make sure your hook is close to your bead, and now we're going to slip stitch into that stitch that we marked. Okay, that seam stitch. Place the hook through the stitch, grab the yarn, pull through, and then pull through the same stitch right here. And now from here I'm going to slip stitch into that single crochet, the last single crochet here, slip stitch, and pull, and take out the stitch marker. And now I can make a single crochet into this same stitch, like that. Okay, I know it's a little difficult. Make sure to pull your yarn at the end here, because sometimes you can leave a little too much. So pull it, and once you finish, you have your first single crochet on this side. So now I'm going to make 2 more single crochets, because remember we were making 3 single crochets. So the reason I did this section like that is because that's the way that I found that the bead sits to the front naturally. Like, it doesn't want to go off to the side too much, or it doesn't want to go off to the back side. We want it to sit like this naturally. Okay, I tried a bunch of different ways, and that's the way that works for me. Okay, now I'm gonna move on to making my picots. So chain 3, so I'm gonna leave you to continue making your picots on this section all the way up to this corner, and you want to make sure that you have the same amount of picots on both sides. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to make sure that there's 9 on this side before I make my strap. Okay, so we just want it to look as even as we can, but it doesn't have to be perfect, as I said before. So continue onto your strap, make your next strap, your last strap, just like you did this top strap. Add your bead to the end, and then work single crochets all the way down back to the beginning where we started this row. Okay, so I'll meet you back once we reach here. 1, 2, 3, 4 straps. Now I reach back around to this side, and I just have 1 more single crochet to make, which is into this stitch, and lastly I'm going to slip stitch anywhere around here and cut and fasten off the yarn. So now we have to try this on. Once we try this on, we can move on to the bottom section and the cascading back piece section. Okay, so now you want to get your measuring tape, and we're going to measure for our cascading back piece at the back. Okay, place the top of your measuring tape onto one side. I'm doing this side first, so I'm holding it right here, and then bring it down to around this section here, right where this bottom strap starts, right here. Okay, so leave it where it naturally wants to sit. You're going to take notes of this measurement and write it down because we're going to do it for the both sides. So we want them to be equal. So you want to write down your measurements. Then we can move on to the next step. Okay. You're going to get your stitch markers ready and your beads ready because we're going to be using this very soon. So once you got your measurement, mine was approximately 12 inches. So that's from here to around here. You can make an approximation of what your measurement was. I just chose to go with 12 inches. So now I'm going to chain an amount that corresponds to 12 inches. So take your measurement, lay it out, and we're going to make a slip knot. And we're going to chain an amount that corresponds to our measurements. And that means that we make a chain that is 12 inches long for me. So whatever your measurement is, let's say it's 10, you make a chain that is the same length as 10 inches, okay? So I'm gonna make chains until I reach 12 inches. So I'm gonna count them as well because we're gonna need to count it for both sides, okay? And we want to make sure that our chain is an even number. So I have 50 chains so far, and you can stretch it. You don't have to stretch it too much, but you can give it like a medium amount of stretch, just a little tug. So I think I'll stick with 50. So I'll stop right here. And now once you have your even number of chains, make sure it's even. I wrote down my number of chains, which is 50 for 12 inches. And you're going to make sure to write down that number. And then you're going to add 1 for your turning chain. You're going to chain 1 more. So that 1 extra chain here would be my turning chain. So now I'm just going to single crochet into each stitch all the way back down. And make your first single crochet. But I like to make mine a little different. Just like how I did the straps, I like to go through the back loop instead, just so that it looks a little more uniform. And then I turn it around to the back and go into the back stitches instead. It's just my preference. You can do it the other way if you'd like. Or you can try it this way, but this way kind of takes longer. Okay, so you're going to continue making single crochets all the way until we reach this end here, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I reached back to the end here. Now we're going to attach this piece that we just made, this single crochet row. Place my hook back onto that last stitch where I just made my last single crochet, and now I'm going to attach it to this corner. So this here is the front of the bralette, since we have our bead facing the front of us. It's facing me. So this is the front of the bralette, and we want these bottom straps to be underneath our cascading back piece. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We want it to be underneath. So we're going to work over these 2 straps. So I'm going to place my cups this way, upside down, just to get a better angle. So on any side, any one of these sides at the bottom of the cups where the bottom straps begin, I'm going to attach this section that we just made right to this corner. I'm starting on this corner, and I'm going to make a simple slip stitch. So I'm going to go into the stitch right here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just want these stitches to line up like this over that strap. So what I mean by line up is I want this to be on the same line as this. Okay, I'm gonna slip stitch into this stitch right here just like this. And now I'm gonna cut and fasten off. And we can cut and fasten off this section. What we have here is this section, which would go around like this to our strap, while this would be underneath it. Okay, so we want this to lay over that bottom strap. This is the front of the bralette, so we want it to be on the front, over, not under. No, we want it to be over this strap. Okay, I want you to do this exact thing on this side. So repeat these steps that you made for this section onto this side, and I'll meet you back. Just finished my second one. I stopped off right here on my last stitch, and now I'm just going to turn my work like this and attach it here. And now what I'm going to do is a little different. I'm going to turn over my work like this, so now it's facing the wrong side. That's okay. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. And now I'm going to take out my hook from my piece here and keep that here. Okay, and I'm going to be working into this stitch right here, right before the strap, where the strap begins. So I'm going to place my hook through from the back, and then I'm going to grab my loop, pull it through, and now I can slip stitch just like this, and I can cut and fasten off my yarn now. And for this section here, what we have is our loose end. We're gonna reinforce this section. So there's this section here with this loose end, you see this section here with this loose end. We're gonna take our darning needle, and I'm just gonna make a knot anywhere around here. I'm gonna make a knot right here. So now it's a little more secure over this back strap. Okay, and now I can weave in this end. As you can see here, this section that we just made is over the strap. Yeah, it's over, but we want it to be in line with this section here. So we're going to do the same thing for this side with this piece that we have here. So I want you to lay out your work just like how I have it here. So you have your bralette facing you on the front side with the bead facing you. And we're going to be working from this end all the way down along this edge, and then onto the bottom part of this bralette, all the way onto this next side and back up to this edge. I want you to start on this side, on the left here. I'm going to make a simple slip knot. You're going to attach your yarn to this section here, this first stitch. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and this first chain 2 counts as the first double crochet of a double crochet 2 together, double crochet into the same stitch. So this counts as our first double crochet 2 together. So there's 2 double crochets into that one stitch. Now I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip 1 stitch and then double crochet 2 together into the next stitch. And to do so, we're going to yarn over, place our hook into that stitch, and we're going to grab the yarn like we're going to make a double crochet, yarn over again, and then pull through 2 loops only. So we're going to keep these 2 loops and then yarn over, place our hook back into the stitch because we're making double crochet 2 together. Grab the yarn, pull up a loop, grab the yarn again, pull through 2 loops, Now we have 1, 2, 3 loops on the hook, and this looks like 2 double crochets here that are halfly finished. And now we're going to yarn over and then pull through all 3 loops. So that's what I mean when I say double crochet 2 together. So it's 2 together, but the top of the stitch acts as 1 stitch. So we're going to continue just like this. So I'm going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and make double crochet 2 together into the next stitch. So we're going to continue just like this all the way around onto the bottom of the cups and then back up to the top here. Okay, so I place my work upside down just so it's easier for me to work along this section here. And remember, our strap is behind. This is the point where we attach this section. So we're simply going to work over that. So I'm going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch. So this is my skip 1 stitch. It becomes a little difficult to determine what would be a stitch here, because it seems like it should have a stitch right here. I'm going to skip this first stitch and then double crochet 2 together into the next stitch. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it to the best of your abilities. Just like that. And now I'm going to chain 1 just like before, skip 1 stitch, double crochet 2 together into the next stitch, and we're going to continue on just like that all the way to the end of this other side. Okay, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so this is what your work should look like so far. We worked all the way down to this side. I want you to make sure that you worked over these straps once your bralette is facing you. I want you to also sandwich your work together like this, just to make sure that everything is even. And you should have ended off with double crochet 2 together into the last stitch. So from here we're going to be chaining 1 and we're going to work all the way back around to the other side again. And this is going to be a single crochet row. So I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. This chain 1 does not count as a stitch. This is just the turning chain, and we're going to single crochet into each stitch. So this is the first stitch, the top of this double crochet 2 together. So I'm going to single crochet into that stitch, single crochet into the chain 1 space, single crochet into the next stitch, and continue on just like this from here all the way down, all the way to this side. Okay, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so this is what you should have so far, and now we're gonna need our stitch markers. We're gonna be estimating how many beads we will need for the next row. The way I did this is not really a normal way to do this, but this is the way that I found that works best for me. If you see another way that this could work, maybe you could put it down in the comment section in case anybody else wants to know how to do it in a easier way. So let me show you how I did this. You're gonna get your first stitch marker and place it in the exact middle stitch. So this is the exact middle here. So I place my first stitch marker in the exact middle. From the middle, the exact middle stitch, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into the 6th stitch, we're gonna place a stitch marker. So we're going to continue this all the way around to the ends. So you place all your stitch markers into the 6th stitch. Okay, so I placed all my stitch markers. I just find this way is a bit easier to visualize how many beads we will need. You can count from here. 6, 27. So I'm going to pick out my 27 beads that I want to use. From here, where we left off, chain 1 and slip stitch into the next available stitch, and this is going to be a bit different for everyone depending on how much stitches you have. So I slip stitch into that stitch, and this stitch marker at the end here is a bit too close, so I'm going to remove this one. So that means that there won't be a bead here and there won't be a bead here, so I'll need 25 beads instead. We're going to slip stitch until we have two free spaces, two stitches, 1 2 before our next stitch marker. So once I reach here with 1 2 stitches free, I can stop slip stitching. So there's not going to be anything in this section. We're going to treble crochet into that stitch, making sure there's 1 2 stitches free before we treble crochet. And we're going to make a total of 5 treble crochets. So we have 1 so far. So I'm going to make 1 2 3 chains, and then I'm going to make 5 more treble crochets into that same space. So we have a total of 5 on this side, separated by chain 3, and then 5 more. Now we're going to count 1 2, and into the third stitch we're going to make a slip stitch. Now we're going to do that all over again. So we're going to skip 2 stitches and work 5 treble crochets into the next stitch marker space. So that's 1 2 3 4 5, chain 3. Now treble crochet 5 more times into that same space. Skip 2 stitches and slip stitch into the next stitch, which is the third one. So we're going to continue repeating that all the way around until we reach the end. I'll leave you to do the rest. Okay, so I went all the way around, and as you can see, there's the top 2 sections here where there's none of these shells. I just ended off on my slip stitch here at this corner, and I'm going to slip stitch into each one of these stitches until the very end. Okay, so now I can cut my yarn. Okay, so I just placed all my beads out. This is just so you can visualize where you want your beads. So now you're going to take the end where you cut your yarn, and we're going to unravel this whole row, okay? Until we reach here, okay? But first, we're going to take this and we're going to place each one of these beads onto this yarn end while we unravel from the back to the front. Just like this. And you can do it in order if you'd like. You could even use a needle to make it easier. Okay, so I just added all my beads, and now we're going to unravel. But as we unravel, we want to bring down our beads. We're going to unravel this last row that we made all the way until we reach here. We're going to stop right here where this chain 3 is. So roll it into a ball as you go. Okay, so I just rolled up my ball until I reached the end here with my beads. Okay, so we're gonna unravel until we have 1 2 3 4 5 treble crochets on our hook, and we're gonna bring down 1 bead to the hook. From here, I'm gonna grab the yarn, pull through, and start your next treble crochet just like before. Okay, and your bead should lay flat on the right side. So you continue on with your 5 treble crochets, and you can bring down your beads as you work. So that's 5 there, and now I'm going to slip stitch into the third stitch, or skip 2 stitches, 1 2, and into the third slip stitch. Now we're going to do that again. So you can bring down your beads and unravel some of your yarn to give you space to work your next 5 treble crochets. Skip 2 stitches, treble crochet 5 times into the next stitch. Now I'm going to bring down a bead to my hook and then grab the yarn and then pull through and continue on with your next 5 treble crochets. And then skip 2 stitches and slip stitch into the next stitch. I'm going to leave you to do all the rest all the way around until the next end. This is what your work should look like. Here's where I left off, and I'm going to continue slip stitching all the way until the end. We're not going to cut the yarn just yet. It's actually good that we have some yarn left. We're going to attach these sections here. So we want to attach it somewhere around here because we want this to lay at the back of our neck once we tie this into a bow. So I ended off right here with my slip stitches, and now I'm going to make 1 chain at the end, and I'm going to pick up my strap and place it next to your work because we're going to work around this strap here. So we want to place it right behind there. There's no definitive stitches at this edge, so we're going to have to work even stitches, as even as we can. But remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm working into this first stitch right here, and I'm grabbing the yarn around this strap, pulling up a loop. We have 2 loops on the hook. Now I'm going to grab the yarn, pull through both loops. So that's our first single crochet around the strap. Now we don't want these stitches to be too tight because we want the strap to be able to move freely like this. We're going to continue making single crochets until we reach the end here. I'm going to go into the next stitch, anywhere around there, single crochet, and continue just like this. So I have 1 2 3 4 5 stitches, and I'm gonna slip stitch into this stitch right here at the end, just so that the both sides look the same. And now I can cut and fasten off. So yes, this is our first connection here. So now you're gonna do that same thing on the other side, but we'll have to attach the yarn. Weave in all your ends with your needle and you're finished. Enjoy!